I'm Rabbi James Byers coming to you live from Africa, West Africa, that is Ghana, Elmina, Ghana. So we'd like to say thank you to everyone who have been following us on Let's Talk Torah. So this evening we have another great study for us. So if you will go ahead and open up your scriptures, we will deal with two this evening, Jeremiah chapter 33. And then there will be Matthew chapter 26. So we will start with Jeremiah chapter 33. And let me grab some help. All right. So once again, like to say thank you to everyone for your continued patronage as we continue to walk together in the Torah. All right, so Jeremiah chapter 33, beginning at verse 1. And the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah a second time while he was still shut up in the court of the guard, saying, Thus said Yahweh, who made it, Yahweh, who formed it to establish it. Yahweh is his name. Call unto me, and I shall answer you, and show you great and inaccessible matters, which you have not known. Verse 4. For thus said Yahweh, the Elohim of Yisrael, concerning the house of this city and the houses of the sovereign of Judah, which are thrown down against the siege mound and the sword, while coming to fight with the Kasdim, and to fill their places with the corpses of the men who I shall strike in my displeasure and my wrath. All from whose evil I have hidden my face from this city. See, I am bringing to it relief and healing. I shall heal them and reveal to them the riches of peace and truth. And I shall turn back the captivity of Yehuda and the captivity of Yisrael, and shall build them as at the first, and shall cleanse them from all their crookedness that they have sinned against me. And I shall pardon all their crookedness that they have sinned, and by which they have transgressed against me. And verse 9, and it shall be to me a name of joy, a praise, and a pride before all nations of the earth, who hear all the good that I am doing to them, and they shall fear and tremble for all the goodness and all the peace that I am doing to it. Thus said Yahweh, in this place of which you say, it is dried up, without whom, without man, and without beast, in the city of Yehuda, in the streets of Jerusalem that are deserted, without man, without inhabitants, and without beast. There shall once again be heard the voice of joy and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the voice of those who are saying, Praise Yahweh of hosts, for Yahweh is good, for his loving commitment is forever. Of those who are bringing the offering of praise into the house of Yahweh, for I shall turn back the captivity of the land as at first, declares Yahweh. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, in this place, which is dried up, without man, without beast, and in all its cities, there shall be once again be a home of shepherds, causing their flocks to lie down. In the cities of the mountains, in the cities of the low countries, and in the cities of the south in the land of Benjamin, in the place around Jerusalem, in the cities of Yehuda, the flocks once again pass under the hand of him who counts them, declares Yahweh. See, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when I shall establish the good word which I have promised to the house of Israel and to the house of Yehuda. In those days and at that time, I cause a branch of righteousness to spring forth from David, and he shall do right ruling and righteousness in the earth. In those days, Yehuda shall be saved, and Jerusalem dwell in safety. And this is that which shall be proclaimed to her, Yahweh, our righteousness. Hallelujah. For thus said Yahweh, for David there is not to cease a man to sit on the throne of the house of Jerusalem. And for the priests, the Levites, there is not to cease a man to offer ascending offerings before me, to kindle grain offerings, and to slaughter continually. And the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah, saying, thus said Yahweh, if you could break my covenant with the day, and my covenant with the night, so that there be not day and night in their season, then my covenant could also be broken with David my servant, so that he shall not have a son to reign upon his throne, and with the Levites and the priests my attendants, and as the host of heaven is not counted, nor the sand of the sea measured, so I increased the descendants of David my servant, and the Levites who attend upon me. 23. And the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah, saying, have you not observed what these people have spoken, saying, the two clans which Yahweh has chosen have been rejected by him, so they have despised my people, no more to be a nation before them. Thus said Yahweh, if my covenant is not with night or day and night, and if I have not appointed the laws of the heavens and the earth, then I would also reject the descendants of Yaakov and David my servant, so that I should not take of his descendants to be rulers over the descendants of Abraham, Yishak, and Jacob, for I shall turn back their captivity and have compassion on them. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. This is powerful, because what this is an oath and a promise. Oath and a promise that Israel will be restored to the place of Jerusalem. They will be restored to the place of Jerusalem, and they will see Yahshua HaMashiach, or as it says, the King of Kings. It would also have the priesthood. So this, again, as I said, is a major piece of prophecy. And so this is the generation that will see these prophecies come to pass. Like to say, welcome to our guests. Thank you for visiting us on Let's Talk Torah. All right, so let's continue. All right, so let me bring up one of the scriptures. Let's go back to verse 1, chapter 33, verse 1. And it says, and the word of Yahweh came to me, Jeremiah, a second time, while still shut up in the court of the guard, saying, thus said Yahweh, who made it, Yahweh who formed and established it. Yahweh is his name. So Yahweh at this time, he is promising that Israel, the whole kingdom, would be restored to the place of prominence. And so this is what was being asked in Acts chapter 6 through verse 8. And the question was, are you going to restore the reigns at this time? And so what was said to the disciples, and this is what the disciples had asked Yahshua, are you going to restore the reigns at this time? And he said simply, it is not for you to know what is in the authority and the appointed times of Yahweh. And so, in other words, there is an appointed time for Israel to be restored. And I do believe with all the signs and wonders that we are seeing today, this is that time, and we are in the season of restoration. And why do I say that? Because Matthew chapter 24 tells us, when you see these signs and wonders that begin to happen, just know that the Son of Adam is soon to come. And so as we see this about to take place, we can see all of what is going on in the world, fires, wars, reports about possible war. Matter of fact, if you have been paying attention to the news of late, we know about Russia, Ukraine, we know about China and Thailand, but then there's a little more that has been thrown into the mix. And what we are talking about is Niger. Why is this important? Niger is one of the West African nations, and they have been colonized by France. And as France signed a contract with its 14 former colonial provinces, the agreement is, if you try to break this covenant or this contract, then we will send our armed forces in to enforce. So without going into the whole thing, because it's still unraveling, you have the president of Niger, who is currently under house arrest. The army has taken over running the country. And so this has happened in a number of countries. And so these countries that are under France are dispelling France, saying we will no longer honor that contract, because basically what is happening is France has 85% of their GPD, or their gross national product, GNP, gross national product, and they keep an account on what is raised, what is earned, their monetary accounts are in France. They keep up with what comes in per year, and if they don't pay for certain services of France, France says no pay, no money. So what you have been seeing, I do believe that most of the African nations are under these type of contracts. I would definitely be interested to see what is the contracts of the other nations, because they all began to divest or emancipate back in the 60s 57 for Ghana, which was the first, and then thereafter. Well, with this type of contract, are you really emancipated? Because really what it is, it's a noose. They have control over their army, their finances, their health care, everything that is of national concern. France is in charge of it. And the 15% that they are due, according to this contract, they don't regularly know what they are owed. So France regularly, there's not fairness to this, where France had become very wealthy off the backs of Niger. So one of the major things is uranium and other minerals that the African nations have. As these colonialists have contracts on these minerals, then you see why the countries are in such poor conditions, because it is still the colonialists who have control. All right, so let's continue. Verse 7. I shall turn back the captivity of Yehuda and the captivity of Israel, and shall build them as at the first, and shall cleanse them from all their crookedness that they have sinned against me. And I shall pardon all their crookedness that they have sinned, and by which they have transgressed me. So in other words, as Israel is beginning to awaken, as Israel is returning back to the motherland, so to speak, there is an awakening that is taking place in the diaspora. And as we collectively begin to gather together in the different nations of Africa, we come back with a message that we have sinned and we have transgressed the covenant of Mount Sinai. And so this is the message that we come to Africa with, and doing our best to awaken the mass. And so as we collaborate together, there's big numbers of Hebrew communities in Africa, places like Nigeria, which has a few million Hebrews there. But when you go to the different countries, you will see evidence of the Hebrews who have passed through the African nations. So as Yahweh says in verse 7 that he's going to reverse the captivity, what I can see is that this is already taking place. As of 2019, what we see is a exodus out of the diaspora returning to Africa. Ghana is probably one of your leading countries in that area, but the other countries are also opening up to African American, Jamaican citizens, diaspora period. And as we awaken, and those of us who are gathering here in Africa begin to teach others of our mistakes and teach others to begin to walk according to the commandments, there is an awakening that is taking place even here in Africa, as well in the diaspora. Let's continue a little further. Verse 9, let's look at that. And it shall be to me a name of joy, a praise, a pride before all nations of the earth. So looking at that, Yahweh is saying that he's going to return Israel total Israel, all 12 tribes, to their rightful place. Verse 9 is telling us they will become they will become, a source of pride to all nations. So how will that be? Well, they will begin to know who they are, and that will become a source of pride. I am Israel. And it says, who hear all the good news I am doing for them, and they shall fear and tremble for all the goodness and all the peace that I am doing to it. So, when is peace supposed to come in? You're right. The last 1,000 years of the millennial reign, the 1,000 years of peace. Notice that peace is in there. Yahweh is going to give us peace, and that will last for 1,000 years. Verse 11 talks about the joy of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom. So that's Yahshua right there. The voice of the bride, the voice of those who are saying, praise Yahweh of hosts, for Yahweh is good. His loving commitment is forever. And those who are bringing in the offering of praise into the house of Yahweh, for I shall turn back the captivity of the land as at first, declares Yahweh. So the temple will be restored. The people will be restored. And as the temple and the people are restored together, the kingdom of Israel will be restored. And so as it speaks concerning Israel, the land, the people, it will be, as it says in verse 11, for his loving commitment is forever. So that's the timeline. So we know that this have to be the millennial reign, because it says his loving commitment is forever of those who are bringing the offering of praise into the house of Yahweh. So we know that the temple was destroyed for the last time, 70 AD, very close to 2,000 years. So 1900 plus years ago. And so if the temple is a part of this joy and gladness, then that automatically tells us that the temple will take part of this time of praise and the time of weddings and feast. 12, and thus said Yahweh of hosts, in this place which is dried up, without man and without beast, in all the cities, there shall once again be a home of shepherds, causing their flocks to lie down. So Jerusalem will be restored. There will be priests. There will be shepherds over the flock in the cities and the mountains of Jerusalem. Verse 13, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when I shall establish the good word which I have promised to the house of Israel, to the house of Yehudah. So that's all 12 tribes. And it says, I cause a branch of righteousness to spring forth for David. Why is David so important here? Because remember, the promise of a man of the house of David will sit on the throne of David. This was a promise that was given to David, that the house of Israel once again would have the king, the everlasting king, David. So is this David who sinned and died? I don't think so. But this is King David of his lineage, who have already also died, but he was raised to eternal life. And so he will return to us. And as he returned to us, he will, as he says, I will come and retrieve you to myself. Verse 16 says, in those days Yehuda shall be what? Saved, and Jerusalem dwell in safety. So I believe this. I trust this. I know that Yahweh's word is true. And they will proclaim Yahweh our righteousness. 17. Thus said Yahweh, for David there is not to cease a man to sit on the throne of the house of Israel. For the priests, the Levites, there is not to cease a man to offer ascending offerings before me, to kindle grain offerings, and to slaughter continually. So that right there, verse 18. So here the animal sacrifice will continue once again. Now, according to Ezekiel chapter 43, we will have to restore the animal sacrifices. And Ezekiel explains that it is, and Yahweh is actually talking, it is explained that the offerings must once again restart. Some years ago, I was asked the question, well, if Yahshua is our ultimate sacrifice, why would there be animal sacrifice again? Well, the answer to that is that we have never had peace. There's been certain periods of time of peace, but never for 1,000 years. And so in order to rekindle the offering that should take place according to Ezekiel chapter 43, there has to be an altar. And if there's going to be an altar, there will also be the temple. So there will be a cleansing of the altar by blood, because remember, you need blood in order to cleanse the altar. And because Yahshua, he died once and for all, he will never be crucified again. So what took place during his time was for the sins of man, and that we, those who have sinned, not on purpose, that is, unintentionally, if we accept his atoning blood, then his spirit and his atoning blood is poured on all of us. Now, so why is there need for the blood of lambs and goats again? Because the altar that will be built in that day has to be cleansed with blood. And notice that when Yahshua was crucified, sometime after his death, the temple was destroyed, which means the altar, the temple, everything, Jerusalem, everything was destroyed, burned with fire. So in order to restore, and I guess I need to pull that verse up. In order to restore the temple sacrifices and the offerings that will take place, there has to be an altar built. So I'm going to go to Ezekiel chapter 43, and let's begin with verse 7. He said to me, Son of man, this is the place of my throne, speaking of the temple, and the place of the sole of my feet, when I dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever. So that gives us the timeline. When I, Yahweh, dwell in the midst of Israel forever. And the house of Israel shall no longer defile my set apart name, they nor their sovereigns, their kings, by their whoring and by their courts of their sovereigns on their high places. When they place their threshold by my threshold, and their doorposts by my doorposts, with a wall between them and me, they defiled my set apart name by the abominations which they have done. So I consumed them in my displeasure. So this is proving that the temple that was destroyed was by his doing because he was angry. But verse 10, Son of man, explain the house to the house of Israel. And when they are ashamed of their crookedness, they shall measure the measures. And since they shall be blamed of all that they did, make known to them the design of the house and its structure, and its exits and its entrances, its entire design, and all its law, and all its form, and all its Torah or laws. Write them down before their eyes, so that they observe its entire design and all its law, and shall do them. This is the Torah of the house upon the mountaintop, all the boundary of it, all around its most set apart. See, it is the Torah of the house. So then it goes into the dimensions of the temple, which when you look at it, it is not the same as the first or the second temple. So you know that this is talking about a third temple. And I'm going to go to day 1. So this is Ezekiel chapter 43 still, and verse 18. And he said to me, Son of man, thus said the Master Yahweh, there are the laws for the slaughter place or altar on the day when I made it, for offering ascending offerings on it, and for the sprinkling of blood on it. And you shall give a young bull, for a sin offering to the priests, the Levites, who are the seed of Zadok, who approach unto me, declares Yahweh the Master. And you shall take some of his blood and put it on the four corners. So that's the first day, verse 22. And on the second day, you bring a male goat, a perfect one, for a sin offering. So I just really wanted to open up how they're going to go through a series of 8 days away from general population, according to the book of Revelation. It tells us that Israel will be flown on 2 wings of an eagle to a place that have been prepared by Yahweh. So let's go back to chapter 33, Jeremiah chapter 33, and we're going to conclude with this chapter. Chapter 33, verse 25. Thus said Yahweh, if my covenant is not with the day and night, and if it is not appointed the laws of the heavens and the earth, then I would also reject the descendants of Jacob and David, my servant, so that I should not take of his descendants to be ruler over the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. For I shall turn back their captivity and have compassion on them. This is the oath that Yahweh took with the sun, the moon, and said, if you can break the oath that I have given with day and night, then I would also reject the descendants of David and Jacob, who are to sit on the throne of David forever. So we still have the sun and the moon, the stars, and we see that it is a covenant that has not been broken as of yet. Every morning the sun comes up, every evening the moon comes up. And so there's times when the moon is dark and we don't see it, but it's still there. It's only going through its cycle of night and light. So Jeremiah chapter 33 is hinged on a law that cannot be broken. Therefore, the promise of a king to sit on the throne of David, who is everlasting, will be fulfilled. Let's march over to Matthew. Matthew chapter 26. Matthew chapter 26. And we're going to try to get through as much of this chapter, a rather long chapter. So I think what I'll do is use subtopics to get us where we need to be and just kind of move it along. This is a chapter that we should be very familiar with. This is the time that they seek to take the life of Yahshua. Now, if we think through to the bigger picture, he is the lamb, he is the sacrificial lamb that is he is our pay for life and death. So verse 1 says, and it came to be when Yahshua ended all these words, he said to his taught ones, you know that after 2 days the Pesach or Passover takes place, and the son of Adam is to be delivered up to be impaled. Then the chief priests of the scribes and the elders came together at the court of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas, and plotted to seize Yahshua by trickery and kill him. But they said, not at the festival, lest there be an uproar among the people of Israel in the land. So they didn't want to upset the people, so they wanted to do their best to get him by himself. And so they had scouts, of course, looking out. They wanted to know where he was. Remember, he showed up at Miriam's house. He didn't go all the way to the house, but he also sent word to Miriam by Martha saying to come out to meet him because they were in mourning for their brother, and he was to raise them up. And so by this time, as they are meeting at Martha's house this time, I'm bringing in two different times. One time before he got there, remember, he died and he was buried for 4 days. Yahshua raised him up after that period of time. Right here, it says 2 days later, the Pesach will begin. So Miriam, this is the story of the alabaster box, verse 7. The perfume she began to put on his feet, wipe his feet with her hair. And as he wiped her feet with her hair, there was a complaint. And the complaint brought out the heart of Judah, who betrayed him. And he said what? That this oil should have been sold for silver. And so it says let's go to, well, they paid Judah Iscariot 30 pieces of silver. So 26 and 15, Matthew 26:15. What would you give me to deliver him to you? They counted out to him 30 pieces of silver. So they're preparing for Pesach. He's planning, they're planning. What can we do to get him by himself? Verse 17, and on the first day of unleavened bread. So now we're at Passover, the story of the Hebrews coming out of Egypt. This is what is called in the Hebrew the Haggadah, or the telling of the story. It is a remembrance. And so we started with this chapter 2 days out. Now it says the first day of unleavened bread. First day of unleavened bread is Passover, because the next day is 7 days consecutive of no leaven within your borders, your house, eating, period. It's a fast. All right, let's continue. So as they are sitting, eating, during the Passover, verse 21, Yahshua tells them that, verse 21, while they were eating, he said, truly I say to you, one of you shall deliver me up. And they were deeply grieved and began to say to him, each one of them, Master, is it I? So as they begin to conversate among themselves, they're asking Yahshua, is it I? Because he says, one of you. So it's down to 12 men, and one of them will betray him. As we already know, it is Judah. And so verse 25 says, and Yehuda, he who delivers him up, answering said, Rabbi, is it I? And he said to him, you have said it. So Yahshua only spoke to Judah and said to him, you are the one. All right, so as Judah, verse 26, chapter 26, verse 26, Matthew 26:26. And as they were eating, Yahshua took bread, and having blessed, broke it and gave it to his taught ones, or disciples, and said, take, eat, this is my body. And the cup, and giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood, that of the renewing covenant, which is shed for many for the forgiveness of sin. So right here, what we see is Yahshua. He's given each of them, he's saying, eat this bread. It is my body, as we read through the different accounts, broken for you, my blood poured out for you. And so, as they were sharing in this, verse 29, but I say to you, I shall not certainly drink of this fruit of the vine from now on till the day when I drink it anew with you in the reign of my Father. So he will return to restore the feast days to us together. So he's coming back to once again teach us how to properly go through the feast days. Until then, we continue to do as he was doing. And what he said is, now when you do this, Do this in remembrance of me. So there was a slight shift. We still continue to do what we were taught in Exodus chapter 12, Leviticus chapter 23, Leviticus chapter 11, clean and unclean, what we eat. So we still continue to do it because it is Yahweh's salvation plan that was given to us at Mount Sinai. And once again, Yahshua, he verifies and sanctions by saying, now when you do this in remembrance of me. And so verse 30, it says, and having sung a song, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Yahshua said to them, all of you shall stumble in me this night, for it has been written, I shall strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered. So at this point, Yahshua is alive. And because of the prophecy of Zechariah chapter 13, verse 7, he will be the sacrificial lamb. I will strike the shepherd. So Yahshua is the shepherd that was struck down. Verse 32, 26, 32. But after I have been raised, I shall go before you into Galilee or Gilead. And Kepha answering said to him, even if all stumble in you, I shall never stumble. Yahshua said to him, truly I say to you, that this night, before the cock crows, you shall deny me 3 times. Kepha said to him, even if I have to die with you, I shall not deny you. And all the taught ones said the same too. So at this point, Peter is saying, I pledge my life to you. If you should die, I will not deny you. So I have to die also. But Yahshua answers something to him. And going into the next part of the reading, as they went out to Gethsemane, Yahshua was praying, and he said to the 3, Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, he said, remain here while I go and pray and watch with me. And then, as you know, we know the story, they fell asleep. He came out and said, can you not stay awake with me for 1 hour? I am to be tried and I am praying. And so Yahshua asked Yahweh, at this point, he's praying. Verse 39, and going forward a little, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not as I desire, but as you desire. So he's saying to Yahweh, I desire that this cup pass from me, but not my desire, your desire be done. So as he came out again, they had fallen asleep again, and he woke them up saying, the body is willing, but the flesh is weak. And so as they were falling asleep, they couldn't help but fall asleep. Remember, this is as Adam, Yahweh put Adam to sleep and brought forth a rib, which was the wife of Adam. So what we see here is the disciples who are being put to sleep, and Yahshua is about to be delivered up. And so verse 48, and he who was delivering him up gave them a sign, saying, whomever I kiss, it is he. Seize him. And going straight up to Yahshua, he said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. And Yahshua said to him, "Friend, why have you come?" Then they came and laid hands on Yahshua and seized him. So this was the sign, which was the kiss, to identify Yahshua, because remember, he had 12 disciples. 3 of them was with him as he was praying, and he identifies them or him. And so as the men began to grab Yahshua and he began to speak to them, he said, "Look, I was in the synagogue teaching daily, and none of you approached me. And then you're going to come here, and on this night, you're going to grab me." So 57, and those who had seized Yahshua led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders gathered together. But Peter followed him at a distance to the court of the high priest, and he went in and sat with the servants to see the end, or to see what would happen to Yahshua. So he denied him the first time as a woman. Notice who he was. The second time, and then the third time, he began to cry because he recognized what Yahshua said has now become reality. And so he denied Yahshua 3 times within the night before the sun came up. So as Peter denied him, let's see. Okay. Verse 73. And after a while, those who stood by and came to him and said to Kepha, "Truly you are the one, you are one of those two, for even your speech give you away." So his speech or his accent, whatever gave him away, they knew he wasn't a part of them. Then he began to curse and swear, saying, "I do not know the man." And immediately a cock crowed, and Peter remembered the words of Yahshua, who had said to him, "Before a cock crows, you shall deny me 3 times." And going out, he wept bitterly. So it was necessary that Peter would deny him. And this is the reason that Yahshua washed him and the others, saying that if I don't wash you, you will not have no part with me in my Father's kingdom to come. And then Peter said, "Not only my feet, but my hands and all of me." And so he accepted the cleansing by Yahshua the Master at that time. But if we put those thoughts together, you're not going with me now, but you will follow me in a time to come. And so about 40 years later, all of Jerusalem had been burned, and by this time, all the disciples had been captured, tortured, and put to death, each one of them. And so this too was also fulfilled, because he said, "You can't go with me now, but you will follow me in a time to come." And so they too were all put to death, as Kepha himself was put upside down and tortured, even at his request. "Do not hang me in the same manner that my master. I'm not worthy." So they put him upside down. So pretty much that's Matthew's chapter 26, 73 verses, I think. So seventy-five verses. So it was necessary that we, in order to get through it quickly, that we did a summary. So if you have any questions, please put it in the chat, whether now or later. And as always, I would always try to get back to you. So this brings us to a conclusion. So I would like to say thank you for visiting us on another edition of Let's Talk Torah. Shalom, everyone.